Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Recreational Communities webinar. We have a great show for you today, but I'm going to give it just about 30 seconds as people are filtering in from the waiting room. Once again, if you're just joining us, I'm Andrea Hively with USDA Rural Development, and this is the Recreational Communities webinar. We have a really great show for you today, so I hope you're excited to learn about the resources that are available to you in communities that you serve. Okay, we're about 1 minute past, and I know I haven't given it very long, but we have an absolutely packed agenda today. So hello again, everyone. I'm Andrea Hively. I'm with USDA Rural Development, and this is the Recreational Communities webinar. We are in listen mode only because there was an overwhelming registrations for this session. I think we had about 2,500. And so with that many people on the line, it just would not be feasible for us to be chatting or sharing screens or getting off mute. So you'll be in listen mode only today, and the chat is disabled. There is closed captioning. You should be able to turn that on yourself with using the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So welcome. Gateway communities. What are they? Well, they lie just outside or adjacent to our major tourist attractions, such as our national parks, our wilderness areas, and our nature resorts. These communities support our national treasures, and so they really need our protection and our assistance to stay a viable place to live and work. They face many challenges. There's often a lack of land management or availability, lack of affordable housing, the available financing, and the rapid population growth. And with some of our presenters today, you're going to hear from those that are in the field and in these communities and the challenges they've faced and how they've overcome them. We're also going to highlight some of our federal resources. You have obviously myself here from USDA, and we also have Mr. Robert Peterson from HUD to present on some of their programs and the available funding that we have for you to help the communities and leverage their outdoor recreations and tourism venues to address housing solutions and improve their economic resilience. Challenges are many, but the need is great. So without further ado, let me hop into our presentation. I will be going first for you. I have been with rural development for 16 years. I reside in Washington State, and I'm committed to the future of rural communities. It's a big part of my heart. And so I'm excited to talk to you about the programs that we have at rural development to help you find housing solutions. After me, we're going to have Emily Niehaus, who is the founder of Community Rebuild and the former mayor of Moab. I'll tell you a little bit more about her before she starts presenting. Then we'll pass it to Robert, who is our HUD representative, and Robert is the Director of State and Small Cities Division of the Office of Block Grants Assistance at HUD headquarters. After Robert, Doreen Liberito from King City. And Doreen is an AICP, the owner of Earth Design, and EDI, Earth Design Inc., has represented the city of King since the early 2000s as part of the community development. And Doreen is the contract community development director. And then we also have Ann Cresswell from Jackson Hole Community Housing Trust. And I believe she has Julie Shaw with her as well to help present that. So let's get going. I'm here to talk to you about the rural development programs. But before I talk to you about the programs, it's always important to know how an organization is set up. So we have a national office, which is where I reside virtually as a representative of the Washington, D.C. staff. And what we do is really set policy and market and help manage the funding. But the important people are in the state. And that's who you're going to really want to connect with when you start looking into these programs and wanting to take advantage of them for your communities. The state and area offices can be found on our website. And that's really the folks on the ground that are going to be processing these and funding these for you. So go to our website, check out who's the players in your neck of the woods and start the game. The other important website for you and all of our programs is that we are rural development. And so all of our programs assist rural communities. Now, the definition of rural kind of changes, varies a little bit from program to program. So the easiest thing to do, especially for our housing programs, is to come onto this eligibility website and go to our property eligibility. And you can see the maps. You can zoom in and out of your area and find where the boundaries are, because we do not serve urban areas. That will be ahead. We have a lot of money, guys, and I want you to all be able to take advantage of it. Our direct home loan has $1.25 billion, and we even got $7.5 million for a Native American relending demonstration program we're excited about this year. We have $32 million in repair grants, and we actually got another $60 million to assist disaster areas in grant funds as well. We have $28 million for repair loans, 32 million for self-help housing, 10 million for our site loan program, and our housing preservation grant program got 16 million. And I'm saying this fast because my next few slides are going to explain what each of these programs are. First and foremost, our flagship is the direct home loan program. This is a subsidized home loan program for those that are below the low income level. So all of our programs have to be in rural communities, and there's also income limits on that previous website that you can go to and view. So you know which income limits fit to each program. For the direct program, you can be low or very low. We subsidize the interest rate as low as 1%. We have extended payback terms up to 38 years. There's no down payment required, and we can loan up to 100% of the value of the home. It's really the most affordable mortgage product out there to serve rural communities and those who are below the very low income level. Next, I want to talk to you a little bit about the certified packaging program. If you are an organization that meets some requirements I'll talk about next, nonprofit status, that kind of thing, you could package these 502 loans for us and earn money for your organization. The packaging fee when you're working with an intermediary, which is an organization that has got an MOU with us that you submit the packages through. So I help you quality control and check. You can earn up to $2,000, which is usually split with them, up to $7,500 if you're not working with an intermediary. And the program I'm going to speak about next are 504 direct repair loans and grants. If you package for that program, you can earn up to $750. A little bit more about the packaging program. You need to have at least 1 year of affordable housing origination experience and be employed for a qualified employer, which is our nonprofit, state and local housing authorities, local governments, and our tribes. And then you need to complete a 3-day class, which is offered periodically throughout the year, and our website lets you know which classes are available in your area. And then after 1 year of taking that class, you have to pass a quick test. You can find an intermediary to work with by going to the map here. And really what the packaging is all about is a partnership. It's about ensuring that we can help more people in the communities. And when you are in your community knowing these folks, it's such a wonderful way to get them to us when sometimes we don't have the presence that you do, especially in these gateway and recreational communities. Now let's talk about one of my favorite programs, Section 504 Rehabilitation Loans and Grants Program. This program is a 1% loan. This program is for those that are in the very low income. So you have to be very low income. With our 502 direct, you can go up to low, but with this one, you have to be very low. It's a 1% fixed rate, so no subsidy attached to that. 20-year repayment and up to $40,000. So that's less than $200 a month to get $40,000 to repair your home. The grants go up to $10,000, but you do have to be 62 or older to get these grants. So what's really cool about the disaster money that Congress gave us this year is you don't have to be 62. You just have to be 18 years of age or older, and you can go all the way up to the low income category. So if you're in a community that was hit by a 2022 presidentially declared disaster storm and you need funds to repair homes, this is the program for you. We have those funds come our way. Also in the rehabilitation category is our Section 533 Housing Preservation Grant Program. This is very similar to the 504 program that we just talked about. However, the grants are actually awarded directly to an organization, nonprofits, federally recognized tribes, state and local governments, those types of things, not for-profit entities. And you can charge up to 20% admin cost to these grants as well. So not only do you get the repair money that can help those that are in the low income category with no age restriction, but you can charge up to 20% admin cost to this grant. This grant is announced annually through a NOFA process. All the other programs I'm talking to you about today are available year-round. The federal fiscal year is from October 1st to September 30th. So this is the only program where there's a notice that comes out in the Federal Register and there's an application window. That notice should be coming out this spring, and the window to apply is early summer. Our self-help grants and site loans. Self-help grants are really administrative grants. It's a technical assistance grants to an organization, nonprofits, state, local governments, federally recognized tribes, to administer the construction or rehabilitation of homes. So what the organizations that get these grants do is they get groups of families together, usually between 4 to 8 to 12 families, and they get land ready, and they have the house plans that the families can choose from, and they have, the interior things that the families can choose from, and the families put in 65% labor to build these homes, but the reward is sweat equity. Right? When they're done building their house, they usually have 20 to 30 to 40, even $100,000 of equity. Plus, they know how to not only build a home, but maintain a home. So the grant money that the organization goes to pay normally about 80% salary and expenses, because you're going to have a loan packager to package the loans to us or to whatever entity that is funding the loans to the homeowners. You're going to have a construction supervisor staff, because someone's got to be out there teaching the families how to build these homes and also manage the subcontractors. And then you're going to need a finance person. So about 80%, as I said, of these grants is actually just to pay admin costs so you can run the program. But it's a really cool program. And then the site loan program supports it or not. If you don't have a self-help grant, you can still get a site loan to build affordable housing. And the affordable housing does have to go to serve those that are between the low and moderate income levels. So you can get the site loan for the self-help program, or you can get it to build houses in another fashion. So income and rural eligibility website, super important. Our handbooks and regulations have great checklists for all of these programs, and there's the link to that as well. And then finding your local person to really get these programs going and learn more about them is this website here. So I don't want to take too much time. As I said, we have so many great presenters today. I want to move on, but here's my contact information, and then my counterpart, Shannon Chase, who oversees that 502 program that I talked to you about first. And this presentation, again, is being recorded and will be sent to all registrants, as well as PowerPoint. So you'll be able to get a hold of us later. Now, without further ado, I'm really honored to introduce Ms. Emily Niehaus, who I said earlier is the founder of Community Rebuilds and the former mayor of Moab. A Moab-based nonprofit Community Rebuilds is a Moab-based nonprofit building low-carb, affordable straw bale homes through a workforce training program. Emily has a master's degree in applied sociology from Clemson University, and she loves life in Moab with her husband and son. If you can't find Emily in her office, she's probably out on the trail running or on the river. So without further ado, Emily, take it away.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I love that you said we build low carb homes, especially coming through the winter. Low carb is good. It's actually low carbon. So it's all about the impact and the footprint that the homes that we build have on the environment. But I will get to that. So hi, everyone. My name is Emily Niehaus. Thanks for that awesome intro. Again, I am the founder of Community Rebuilds and the former mayor of Moab. So two hats that really uniquely give me an opportunity to share with all of you today just how living in a gateway community is your opportunity. Sometimes it feels like a challenge, but it really is an opportunity for building housing. And we have such a great partner in USDA. So next, how can we address the affordable housing needs of our gateway communities? This is a slide. And it's kind of a familiar image for those of us living in rural communities, old dilapidated housing, but in a beautiful place. So that's basically what I'm going to talk about in my brief presentation, is how we are leveraging USDA Rural Development's partnership with us to get rid of these homes and build affordable, sustainable homes in Moab. Next slide. Because it takes a great partner. And I will tell you all, working with the government, if you say that today, you may see eye rolls, you may have conspiracy theorists telling you otherwise, but I am here to tell you that USDA Rural Development is an incredible partner for building housing in gateway communities. Next. Yay, I love the hearts and the hands. Okay, so organizations like Community Rebuilds can help families achieve home ownership. And this is an example of the homes that we built. We put solar panels on the top, we site the homes to face the south, and we keep a very simple design. We also install gray water, so that garden that's in front of this home here is actually watered by shower and sink water from the bathroom. Okay, next. Right, and the other thing about Community Rebuilds that I should mention is that we've built 71 homes so far. So we're not a pilot program. We have established through our partnership with USDA Rural Development that this housing in rural communities through these programs works. Next. So yeah, in gateway communities, they or we all call home. So I want to pause on this slide for just a second and recognize Delicate Arch, the most popular arch in Arches National Park. So Moab is actually a gateway community to both Arches National Park and Canyonlands National Park, as well as lots of public lands. Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service is just behind the arch. You can see the mountains. So we are surrounded by public lands. That means a lot of public lands and not a lot of private property to build housing. But Moab as a valley has the same square footage as the island of Manhattan. So it doesn't mean we can't build housing. We just have to be smart about our footprint. I'm going to put my mayor hat on here for a second and just say that, for a community of, under 10,000 residents, we are experiencing and will probably continue to experience a housing crisis. So we have a lack of housing stock. We have existing stock that is dilapidated. Of that existing dilapidated housing stock, the utility payment, especially for single wide trailers, is enormous in the winter. Recreation wages are statistically lower than other industries. And so the people that live and work in Moab are faced with low wages and then competition with second homeowners or remote workers that make more money or have more resource and essentially price the workforce out of housing in our community. So it's definitely a two-part problem with both the housing stock, being rural and remote, not having resources to even build homes, where we are 2 hours from the nearest Walmart in Moab. So when you need a special part or even like a shower curtain, it's a process, and we have to be smart and organized as we're trying to identify and address affordable housing development. So that is the beauty and the challenge. Thanks. Next slide. So what I did was I founded Community Rebuilds to attempt to solve for this affordable housing needs in Moab. And I was just young enough and dumb enough to try. But I want to let you all know that you don't have to be young and inexperienced to be able to do this work. It is possible, especially when you look around and you see your community members in need. It's all bonus. All those 71 homes that we've built so far are bonus. So next slide. Here's the solution thanks to USDA Rural Development. Next slide. The 502 direct loan. So I was actually a loan officer before I started Community Rebuilds. And when I was looking for building affordable housing, I was asking everyone, what's the best loan? I need a loan that's 0% down, that has really generous terms like 33 or 38 years. I'm in a rural community, so we don't have access to capital like HUD and urban areas and big banks. I have low and very low income families that aren't making a lot of money. And I need a dynamic loan where the families don't have to get two loans, the construction loan and then the permanent financing. I need a unicorn. And somebody said to me, hey, guess what? USDA has a unicorn loan for you. It's called the 502 direct loan. Every participant of the Community Rebuilds program celebrates their 502 direct loan with us. USDA is also very flexible in your housing typology. So we are building low carbon, modern natural buildings. So solar panels, straw bale homes, adobe floors. Like if USDA will loan to us, USDA will loan to all of us. Next slide. So the first couple homes we built were using this 502 direct loan, but like starting a new business is complicated. And starting a new business that's a nonprofit is super duper complicated because it's difficult to find investors. When you're a nonprofit, you don't have shares to sell. And so what I was looking for was a grant to be able to kickstart after I had built a pilot home and was starting on the second. I needed an infusion of cash and somebody to believe in me. And so I was looking for a beautiful grant to help launch a very sustainable program. And sure enough, somebody said, hey, you know, USDA can be a partner for this as well. They have a rural grant for businesses. And so I applied for and received the Rural Business Enterprise Grant. It has changed over the years, so you do want to check in, like Andrea was saying, with your local office to find out, you know, what is available today for grants. I don't know if they still cover housing, but it was a one-time grant. It was a competitive grant. I fought and I got it, and we were able to launch our program. Next slide. And so we got the, you know, we were using these 502 loan monies. We got the grant to build the organization, but then something happened. The USDA person I was working with said, hey, listen, we only have so much 502 direct loan money. And I said, is there any way that I can secure getting 502 direct loan money for the program participants? And she said, well, the only way you can really do that is to be a mutual self-help grantee. And I said, well, what's that? And then my world changed and the skies opened up and the forever relationship with USDA really began. So we applied for and became a mutual self-help grantee. Like Andrea described before, we partner with USDA to qualify families for their loans and to provide them with support while they're doing their while they're building their homes. We do the bookkeeping. We do this. We manage the stress of contractors and subcontractors. But the beautiful thing about this grant is that it's not competitive. Once you have it, you get to keep it as long as you dot your T's and cross your I's and be a good partner. USDA is a partner back to you. So that 523 mutual self-help grant really came about because I wanted to solidify the 502 loan for families, and then it became bonus income for us to sustain the program. Next slide. But there's more to community rebuilds than just the partnership with USDA, because these homes, these straw bale homes, require a lot of labor and a lot of like dirt sifting and straw piling. And so we've actually combined our partnership and our self-help, mutual self-help program with a student education program. So in this diagram, you can actually see on one side, we're working with USDA and homeowners building homes, but we're also raising funds and operating a student education program where these interns can work alongside homeowners and make up the difference of labor and do some other things, learning about construction. And we can offer internships to women who typically have a harder time getting hired for work on a construction site. So we can give these students an opportunity to get experience, build their portfolio, and partner with our homeowners to be able to build homes faster and better as a result. And so next slide. This is how we deepen affordability beyond the mutual self-help program. Next slide. I just want to point out two points. The first is that we're building with straw. It was USDA that pointed out to me when I said, oh, it's an agricultural byproduct. They said, you turned it into a co-product. We use it for insulation. It's just really cool. It's just like a bonus that it's USDA funded and it's an agricultural product. Next slide. And that we're training builders. So when we talk about a lack of resources in our rural communities, we also lack builders. And so it's really nice to have our student education program of each internship. We usually have one or two that stick around that get hired by local contractors. And so contractors have a labor force that they're able to utilize. Next slide. And look how happy they are. So fun. Straw is very itchy. It wasn't there was a lot of itching after this photo. But next slide. The thing I want to stress about our opportunity in working with the Gateway community, working in Gateway communities, is that while we may suffer from high land prices and a lack of resources, we can attract resources because we are a beautiful place. And so that resource that Community Rebuilds has capitalized on is this human capital that you see here, these 20-year-olds that are looking for opportunities to assist in solving for affordable housing in beautiful communities like our own. Next slide. So thank you for giving me the chance to talk. Communityrebuilds.org is our website. Feel free to reach out to us for inspiration and check out our website. But really, like Andrea said, communicate with your local RD office and get all of this information and start your own program.
Thank you so much, Emily. I really appreciate that. It's such an inspiring story, and I'm so glad Rural Development could be a partner to you. All right, so let's move on now to Mr. Robert C. Peterson, who is the director, I've said, of the State and Small Cities Division of the Office of Block Grant Assistance in HUD's headquarters. He and his staff supply critical support to state grantees receiving community development block grants, the CDBG funds. The CDBG program is one of the U.S. government's broadest domestic development programs, directly funding state and local governments. Prior to joining HUD, Robert received a master's in urban and regional planning from the University of New Orleans, volunteered with the Peace Corps in Honduras, and in a previous life worked in the environmental field. Robert has worked with the division since 2009 and was just made director here in 2020. So take it away, Robert.
Thank you. Emily, that was a great presentation. You are a hard act to follow. You'll notice that my slides are pretty plain and lacking of photos compared to, this is a nice presentation. You're doing some good work. I want to talk to you about the state CDBG program. That's where I work. It's not the only program that HUD has to offer. We have quite a bit of offerings, particularly in our community development office with the home program. There's a program for assistance with persons with HIV/AIDS. There's a program for emergency solutions grants for homeless. We have quite a lot, but specifically with the CDBG program, I want to share some things for you. Thank you. We have pretty good coverage. We provide annual grants. Congress gives us, right now it's about $3 billion a year that we divide up, kind of like Robin Hood, I guess. We spread it out with a formula to over 1,200 grantees. And these grantees can use it in a variety of ways, but it has to be in alignment with our mission to develop viable urban communities, provide decent housing, suitable living environment, and expand economic opportunities, principally for low and moderate income persons. You're going to hear me say that a few more times. Basically, no matter where you live, your community can access CDBG funds. The only difference is whether you get your funds through the state or whether HUD funds you directly. Smaller communities are going to go to their state. Moab would have to go through the state. Jackson Hole would have to go through the state. It's the larger communities that are funded directly by HUD. Next slide. So some of our grantees' responsibilities, and if you are from a community that is a direct recipient of HUD funds, you probably know this. We really look to our grantees to design their own program. We have all kinds of different things you could do with the funding, but it's all based on community need. So there's public hearings and consultation, needs assessments, and strategic plans are developed, and ultimately an action plan is put together to address those community needs and how our funding will be used. It includes the criteria that the grantee wants to set for applicants. In the case of a state, They would be funding the smaller rural communities, and they'll set the criteria for those communities and set the type of projects that they'll be funding for the year. Report accomplishments, ensure compliance, and again, they advance the mission of the program. Next slide. Now, CDBG, it can be used for a lot, but it really has a pretty specific focus. And that is to benefit low and moderate income persons. 70% of our funding has to be used by our cities and counties and states. 70% of our funding has to be used for this purpose. It can be done in a variety of ways. You can provide housing assistance. You can assist a business to create jobs, provide grants to nonprofits that provide a public service, provide a clientele type service, or you can invest in public facilities and infrastructure that has an area-wide benefit. So there's really a pretty broad set of things that you can do. And if you can't benefit low and moderate income people, but you have an emergency type situation, then we have these additional criteria to eliminate slums and blight or meet an urgent need. Next slide. So I mentioned there's a lot of things that are possible with our money. It's all based on the local grantee's decision. They look at those community needs and try to match it up. We can do housing rehab, home ownership assistance, other types of real property activities. I mentioned public facilities, parks, streets, water, sewer, healthcare, homeless assistance. For economic development as well, we can provide grants or loans to businesses to create or retain jobs for low and moderate income people, provide assistance to microenterprise, to nonprofits, and also do planning, provided that whatever you're planning for, if it was ever funded, that it would be CDBG eligible. Next slide. That's not even all the things, by the way. There's tornado shelters, I think, are on the list. There's quite a lot. And it's a hard program to really get a handle on because our grantees do so many different things with the money. And that's really what we're trying to express with this graphic. So the size of the bubble is how much money is spent on that particular thing. And then if you look in the little orange text there, it tells you how many people are benefiting. And I always like to point out that if you notice this probably the smallest bubble there says food banks. So we're not spending a lot on food banks, but we sure do benefit a lot of people through food banks, 2.9 million people. And it's related to how much things cost, right? It costs more to put somebody in a job. And if you look at economic development, we spend a fair amount on that, but we've only provided jobs to about 18,000 people. I mean, it's not only, it's a lot. But in a given year, there's these things about our program that make it hard to measure because our grantees are doing so many different great things. Thank you. Now, there are some things you can't do. And for recreational communities, some of these could be a little bit prohibitive, especially where you're looking to do affordable housing. We'll talk about that in a second. But generally, we expressly prohibit buildings for the general conduct of government, like you couldn't rehab your town hall. Although if it was a fire station, different story. General government expenses, political activities, these are things that are expressly prohibited. Additionally, you can't, I mentioned low and moderate income people. Technically, it's two different groups of people, low income people, moderate income people. You cannot benefit only moderate income people as well. We want the benefit to be open to low income people. So any programs that exclude low income people to the benefit of moderate income people would not be allowed. And again, they all have to meet a national objective. That was that list of things: slum, blight, urgent need, primarily though, again, benefiting low and moderate income people. Next slide. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky with recreation communities. New housing construction is generally not allowed unless you have a community-based development organization. maybe Emily would be interested in becoming one of these as well. Seems like you jump at a lot of opportunities and take advantage of everything that comes your way. But this would be like the limited circumstance where we could do new housing construction. I think when the program was passed, I heard stories that there was a lot of lobbying from the real estate industry, that they didn't want this program competing with the housing market. So yeah, but you can rehab, you can turn existing buildings into housing. That it doesn't have to have been existing housing. It can be an existing building that's rehabilitated into housing. You cannot generally make income payments to people, provide rental assistance. There are emergency circumstances where that's allowed. Generally, you can't purchase equipment, pay for your city's operating expenses, or the tricky one is tourism. Tourism promotion would not be allowed. So like posters and, airtime on the local news, or having a picture of the arch on the side of the bus in Salt Lake, that type of stuff would not be allowed. But if you were supporting an industry, a business, could be any type of recreational business, if they're hiring and retaining low and moderate income people as employees, then that would be something that could be funded. Next slide. Now, again, a lot of this is based on local decision making, and that's where kind of like I'm turning this over to you to do your homework. I put the link in the chat to our grantees. So what you would do basically is, if you're interested in exploring this funding as a nonprofit or as a small community, you probably are going to have to look to your state. When you look up your grantee, I would start with the city you live in. And if they're not a direct grantee, then go to the county. And if they're not a direct grantee, then go to the state. And then you'll find who you need to talk to in order to access CDBG funds, find out what types of projects are being funded in your community. On this website, you can also see the action plans that grantees have created to describe their programs. And if this, if your state or your county is not doing anything that you particularly think is meeting the community need that you've identified, you can always get involved in the grantees are required to do citizen participation and consultation with stakeholders to identify community needs. So if there's a need that's not being addressed, that's always something you can raise and be a part of that planning process to determine how CDBG funds would be used in the future. Next slide. Oh, yeah. So that's me. That's all I got.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, Robert.
Yeah. Who am I kicking it over to now?
We're going to go to Doreen from King City, California, and I'm going to give her a little bit of an intro. You all saw Robert's or see Robert's information here if you want to hit him up with any questions or connect with people in your local area, follow the directions on the slide before. I do see some people have raised their hands, and so I'll just remind you all that because of the overwhelming registrants that we had for this call, we do have everybody in listen mode only, and the chat feature is disabled. I think there's been between 800 and 900 folks about on the call, but we had over 2,500 registrants. So now let me say again that Doreen, I'm sorry, it's becoming tongue-tied here ever since I got my carbs on, huh? Maybe I should have had another cup of coffee before. So Doreen Librito is AICP and the owner of Earth Design Inc. Earth Design Inc. has represented the city of King since the early 2000s as part of community development, and Doreen is the contract community development director. Doreen has a graduate degree in dispute resolution from Pepperdine University School of Law and an undergraduate dual degree from the University of California in political science and administrative studies, with an emphasis on urban planning. She is on the U.S. Institute of Environmental Conflict Resolution roster, a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners and Mediators Beyond Borders International. Doreen was St. Louis Obispo's Community Planning Commissioner for close to 7 years, and on the adjunct faculty of Cal Poly University, San Luis Obispo for 20 years. Doreen is currently on the Ocean Economic Development Council Advisory Board. You're a busy lady, a membership of the Board of Directors, Ecologist, and an advisory board of the newly created West Coast chapter of the Institute of Happiness. She serves as president of the League of California Community Development Department and the Board of Directors member of State Planning Commission Association and on the Central Coast Board of Directors of the American Planning Association. She wears many hats. And we're so lucky to have you on this call today. And I will turn it over to you, Doreen.
Great. Thank you very much for that introduction. Good day, everybody. I'm excited to be here to provide an overview of what our small community of King City has been doing. So the next slide, please. I want to show where King City is located. King City is in Central California, Monterey County. It's a small city of about 13,500 people, small area of less than 4 square miles. Our demographics are predominantly Hispanic population, and 1 in 6 people live below the poverty line as of 2020. We're a disadvantaged community. We're also within the Salinas Valley area, and it's considered the salad bowl of the nation, or some call it the world. The next slide, please. So here's just an overview of where King City is, and we have Highway 101 going through it. We have Big Sur to the west of King City. We're the gateway to the Pinnacles National Forest. We are south of Monterey and Carmel. And we have a 165,000 acre Army base called Fort Hunter Liggett that is directly west of the city. We also have a number of different missions in the area. The next slide, please. So I just want to provide a brief overview of how we're a gateway to a number of different tourist and recreational areas. As I mentioned, the Salinas Valley is considered the salad bowl of the world or in the nation. And this was actually put out by the USDA. And it encourages a tour of the Salinas Valley and identifies many vegetables and fruits in the area. So we do have a number of tourists that will come just to view our farmland. We have a lot of international people who will come to this area to view the farming operations. The next slide, please. We're also, over the last 20 years, have become Monterey wine country. And we have some wonderful wines, if you enjoy wine, in our area, and including red wines, Bordeaux's and Burgundies. Many people will get on their bike and they travel from winery to winery. The next one, please. Next slide. Great. Big Sur's to the west. Highway 1, which is a very popular segment of a roadway between San Francisco and Los Angeles. Just the natural beauty along that area, the redwood trees, spectacular views that will take you from San Luis Obispo area into Carmel and Monterey. Due to the recent rains, this road is currently closed, and it is closed many times, actually, more recently in the years. And the traffic that typically want to go from Southern California or Northern California now are diverted near King City off of Highway 101. Next slide. We also are near and a gateway to Monterey and Carmel, and Monterey is this, again, a lovely fishing community, and Carmel is an artsy community. The next one, please. The Pinnacle National Forest, which is east of King City, and we call it the gateway to the Pinnacles. And this is an area that was one of the more recent national parks. And it attracts many hikers and bikers in that area. Next one, please. We also have, through the Salinas Valley area and Salinas River, which is adjacent to King City, the Juan Bautista de Anza National Trail that goes from Arizona to San Francisco. And so we have a number of people that, again, come through King City, and we have a county park where people will come and camp. Next one. So what I'd like to do now is I've given you an overview of King City, the gateway to a number of recreational and tourist areas. We are, as I mentioned, a small community. We are a disadvantaged community, but we've also, through the use of grants and private funding and collaboration with private and nonprofits, we've been able to work on a number of very exciting projects. And I'll start. The next slide, please. The first thing we did was I want to talk a little bit about policy from a community standpoint. We looked at a policy and said, how do we comprehensively work on a housing program and provide housing for all segments of the population in the area? And so we have a general plan which provides for the long-term growth of the community. We wanted to provide a good mix of housing, and in particular, start looking at mixed uses and not have the uses divided as they had been. Look at reducing standards such as parking. We also are starting to look at floor area ratios instead of densities, which has become very important. I can talk about that later. I need to. Quality of projects is extremely important. We want to make sure that you can't distinguish between a low income project or a market rate project. And we understand that once you get a structure, it's there for a very long time. So we want quality projects. The city has also looked at inclusionary housing, that is for market rate housing. We incorporate a certain number of low income housing types, and we also look at in lieu fees. So again, we look at a variety of housing stock for a wide range of the community, including employee housing, special needs, and affordable housing. Next slide, please. And I won't go into each one of these, but these are some of the implementations procedures that we've used and the projects that we've worked on. And I'll go into a little bit more in each one of these. Next slide. This is an example of where we've tried to collaborate and not just look at housing, but also look at economic development opportunities and look at aesthetically, how can we improve the community? This was a large warehouse of almost 14,000 square feet. Over the past 20 years, manufacturing has left the South Monterey County area and gone elsewhere. So we have some large warehouses. The property owner came to us and indicated they had a need for H2A employee housing, and what could we do to work together? So we looked at working with them to modify the zoning on the site to allow a dormitory style housing project. The approval for this is up to 10 years. And the reason for the 10 years is that we look at projects from a short-term immediate needs. Then we look at a middle range, 2 to 10 years, and then beyond that, long-term housing needs. In this particular case, we knew we had an immediate need to move employees into a housing area, into a dorm-style housing. And so this was approved. And again, you can see the difference before, how we modified the structure and what it looks like later. It also comes into adjacent to our downtown or historic downtown area. So as we have more people that are living here in the evening, they actually come to our downtown area and utilize the restaurants and the stores. So it helps also from an economic development standpoint. Next slide, please. We have a project that we're currently working on. It's called Step Up King City Home Key Project. And we had a number of homeless people that were living in the Salinas River area. In May, we had a major fire that's displaced the people. And so we began working on converting some of our old hotels into residential areas. The permanent supportive housing, however, again, not only provides housing, but we are also going to provide them with job skills, training, so that it's not just placing people into a facility, but also training them so that they can move out of that particular area and to improve their family income. So this is something we converted, or we're in the process of converting a old hotel into 46 units. And there are a number of different funding sources we used, including the American Rescue Plan Act, Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Grant, and permanent local housing allocation funds. Go to the next one. This will also show you again what it looks like and what it currently and what it will look like later on. So as we house people, we are also improving the community, the image of the community, and improving the overall landscaping of it. Next slide. Here's another picture of it. Again, before and after. This is called the Downtown Addition Specific Plan that was approved several years ago. It's for 708 units. It's actually a transit-oriented development project that will include a variety of housing types, including commercial and low-income housing projects. Next one, please. Next slide. On the corner of the specific plan that's outlined in orange, we worked with an agricultural family. They needed to provide some employee housing. And so this is actually privately funded by the farming community. And this is 118 units that are multi-family units adjacent to single family homes in the corner. And this will be providing housing for not just H2A, but also H2B employees. And those employees are the ones that work in restaurants and provide other services. Next slide. People's Self-Help Housing, which is a nonprofit organization, has been involved in King City. This is a particular project we worked on with them on a small lot as an infill project, creating 7 lots and houses, which is a sweat equity project, which was discussed earlier. And again, I want to point out that the importance through all of this is the quality of the projects, not just what they look like, but the quality of the product, and that people can feel that they're in a market rate type of house. Next one. Here's some more pictures of it. The funding for this was the USDA 502, which was mentioned earlier. Also 525 to acquire and develop site for low or moderate income families. And so the families have moved in, and without this, I don't believe that because of the cost of housing in this area, that they could have afforded single family homes. We also have 2 other specific plans that we worked on years ago, total of 800 dwelling units. And in this particular case, we included inclusionary housing. So you can't tell the difference between the low income housing units versus the market rate apartment units. We have the next one, please. And this is a part of the affordable housing project. This is going to be 8 units. Through another nonprofit organization called Chispa. And this is the Mills Ranch Garden Apartments. Low-income apartments, again, you can't distinguish between these units or the market rate units. The funding that we're looking on are to tax credits. We're looking at farm worker housing funds and other private construction and permanent loans from banking institutions. Next one. This is currently a project we're working on for affordable senior housing. Again, we're taking an old motel and looking at converting it into a 3-story, 42-unit affordable housing rentals with commercial on the bottom. Now, this is an area where we start looking into taller buildings and higher densities. And I'll talk a little bit about the densities later on and how we're looking at floor area ratios instead of densities. The next slide, please. This is another project that we're working on. Again, it goes up taller. It's 3 stories, so we're going higher. This is a privately funded project, but will include inclusionary housing provisions, 377 units on about 20 acres. And it will be a mixture of affordable and market rate apartments and townhomes. And then the next one. So we have miscellaneous other projects. We have family apartments, so you can see on the upper picture where we have family units and using home funding through HUD on that one. We also have projects through Monterey County Housing Authority, where they are providing some farm worker housing in the city. And some of the other projects that you can see, including the Courtyard Housing Project on the bottom slide, which is an affordable housing project apartment unit. Next one, please. From a citywide standpoint, we adopted an ordinance for seasonal employee housing. It's called a dual land use category. Rather than change our zone and say throughout the city, you can have employee housing, we wanted to look at specific areas based on mass transit and based on walkability. And so there were certain areas that you can see through the dashed area that we call it a dual land use category because you have the underlying zone. So in this particular case, some of it's commercial, some of it's residential, and you can build at that if that's what you want as a property owner. Or in addition to that, you can have employee housing, seasonal employee housing, with certain standards. And some of the standards that we include for employee housing include the architectural style, make sure that there's outdoor recreational areas, indoor recreational areas, laundry facilities, and so many square feet within the building for each employee housing unit. Next one. The city's currently looking at 3 opportunity areas in the city of where we're going to do mixed use and where we're going to provide affordable units and commercial. And the 3 areas that I really want to mention is as we get into densities and going higher, these are the 3 areas that we're looking at. Some cities will look at going higher or increasing their height or their densities by zone. For example, high residential zone. We're looking at it differently. We're looking at particular areas that we want to rehab, provide more affordable housing, is closer to transit areas, and then have a certain type of image and design. We also have been working on a multimodal transit center. And within that area, we will have higher density and make it easier for people to commute outside of the community. The next slide. I do want to mention opportunity area number 3 that we're looking at. As I mentioned, we've been working on a multimodal transit station for a number of years. And around that area, we will be putting in mixed uses, employee housing, and it will also flow into our historic downtown area. The other very important feature we have in collaborating is working with the County of Monterey. And in this particular case, we have an area directly outside the city where the property owners wanted to put some employee housing, but they didn't have the infrastructure, in particular sewer and water. And so we worked jointly with them to extend our lines, the city's line, and provide them with infrastructure service. So with that, I'll conclude. If you have any questions, here's my email address. Please do not hesitate to send me an email, and I'd be happy to share any information we have. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Doreen. It was awesome to see how many projects you've got going in there and going on down in California down there. So thank you for sharing all of that with us. I'm actually going to stop sharing here because our next presenters are going to take over and share their own screen. I'm excited to have Ann Creswell with us today from Jackson Hole Community Housing Trust. Ann's been the executive director since 2003, and Ann has overseen the Jackson Hole Community Housing Trust development of 118 homes with an additional 79 units in the pipeline, through the creation of several financial and legal instruments and by spearheading partnerships with some of Teton County's most essential employers. She has enabled many community members to support our way of life to continue to live and build a life in Jackson, Wyoming. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ann.
Thank you all for joining us on this webinar. Thank you for having me, Andrea. For nearly 20 years, I have really been fascinated by this issue, but I have to say I'm blown away by all the interest in this webinar. It's amazing. I am Ann Cresswell, as Andrea said, and it is my pleasure to be at the helm of the Housing Trust for nearly 20 years. For those of you that are not familiar with Jackson Hole, 97% of all land is permanently protected. It's either public land, Grand Teton National Park, Bridger Teton National Forest, BLM land, or it's land held in conservation easement. This limited supply of land, coupled with global demand, has been the driving force behind our exponential increase in our cost of land. So how has the imbalance between supply and demand played out relative to the median household income over time? In the late 80s and early 90s, as this slide illustrates, median income was still within reach of the median price of a home. From there, the median home price began to take off while median incomes increased 2 to 3% annually. By the end of 2022, the median price of a single family home hit 3.2 million, and the median price of a townhome hit 1.4. The rental market has also taken a hit. And today, the average rental rate for a studio or one-bedroom apartment is over $2,600 a month, and 2 bedrooms are over $4,000 a month. For 32 years now, the Community Housing Trust has been dedicated to developing affordable housing for people who earn less than 120% area median income. And for a single person, the income limit is around $100,000. For a 2, 3, or 4 person household, our income limit is $150,000. Everything we do in the office revolves around the development of new housing that's affordable for our workforce or managing the affordable housing we have built over time. To date, we've developed or acquired 183 homes in 9 neighborhoods, and we have 3 projects and 80 homes in the pipeline. We've developed a mix of for sale and for rent, every possible unit type, as well as a variety of price points, which have served over 650 people in our community. To protect our investment and ensure the homes are permanently affordable, the Community Housing Trust retains ownership over the land. We lease the land to our homebuyers for 99 years, and we sell the fee simple interest in the vertical improvements to our home buyers. In order to develop housing that is truly affordable for our workforce, we rely on generous private philanthropy, public support from the town and county, and partnerships with many of our community's essential employers. We have partnered to date with our local hospital, school district, library, sheriff's auxiliary, and search and rescue, just to name a few. As the cost, however, of construction and the subsidy per unit has increased over the years, we have been required to prioritize the pursuit of innovative solutions to allow us to more effectively and efficiently address this issue. And with the support of a board of directors that has been willing to invest in new ideas, we have in fact managed to create a few financial and legal tools that have made partnerships possible and allowed us to raise meaningful capital. So I'm happy to share a few of these tools with you today in the hope that it might help address whatever problem you're trying to solve for in your community. So the first is a model for public-private partnership. In 2007, the Community Housing Trust was approached by our local school district about an idea, of course, that initially seemed fairly straightforward. The school district owned a piece of land on which they hoped to build 11 homes for teachers. Recognizing they had their hands full just managing a school district, they hoped to leverage the development expertise of the Community Housing Trust. But Wyoming Constitution, as it turns out, makes it nearly impossible to convey public land to the private sector. And in hindsight, it wouldn't surprise me if this is true for the majority of you on this call today. But in order for the Housing Trust to secure construction financing for the project, we would have to have control of the land so the bank can have adequate collateral and recourse in default. And so we repurposed the legal tool that we use to guarantee our homes remain affordable in perpetuity, that 99-year land lease agreement that I mentioned between the Housing Trust and every Housing Trust homebuyer. And we propose that the school district lease the land to the Community Housing Trust for 99 years. We then baked into the terms of the land lease agreement that the Community Housing Trust will be responsible for the design, development, financing, construction management, and sale of 11 affordable homes to teachers. At least in Wyoming, state statute gives school districts broad powers to lease land that is for the benefit of the schools.
Hey, Anne, can I stop you for just 1 second? I'm not seeing the screen anymore. Did we lose Julia?
We lost internet.
We're
Yes.
getting there.
Oh, okay. Did you want me to share my screen for now, or is it okay without it?
We can continue. We'll pull it up in 1 minute.
Okay, no problem. Sorry to interrupt. Thanks so
No, I'm
much.
glad you did. So as soon as this project was completed and we delivered the units to the teachers, that lease agreement between the school district and the Community Housing Trust was terminated, and the district again had the fee simple interest in the land. Today, this model for partnership is actually the basis for how the town and county approach every partnership every time, whether with the private for-profit or non-for-profit developers. You good, Julia? Okay, we're getting there. The other two legal tools that we created were inspired by the need to raise more and more capital to offset the rising cost of land and construction. The first is a legal tool we have used repeatedly with great success. The tool is called the Employee Right of First Purchase, or EROP, as we fondly refer to it in our office. The EROP allows for employers to buy access to a truly affordable unit on behalf of their employees at a price point that's significantly less than what it would otherwise cost them to build or purchase an affordable home. So the employer does not own the asset, it owns the option. And as it turns out, owning a piece of paper in lieu of an asset means the employer has a lot less to worry about, like paying property taxes, collecting rent, or managing maintenance and operations. It's a one-time fuss-free investment at a significantly reduced price that accomplishes the objective, securing affordable housing for your employees. And it's mutually beneficial for the housing trust because it represents capital that we don't otherwise have to ask of donors or taxpayers. So we've used this tool several times. Now that you can see, we've got our slides back. First, in partnership with the Jackson Town Council over a decade ago, they purchased 6 options for $1.8 million, which helped us to buy land and build 8 affordable homes. At the time, $300,000 was roughly what we expected to pay to subsidize 1 affordable unit. And 3 years later, happy as could be, the town purchased 3 more EROPs. Most recently, we introduced this EROP opportunity to a handful of private sector partners to see if the product would be of any interest to them. We had hoped to raise $1.1 million from the sale of 4 EROPs, and in the end, we sold 5, 1 to a local lender, 3 to our local hospital, and 1 to a local nonprofit. The third tool is the 15-year master lease. This tool is similar in spirit to the EROP, but it can be used to facilitate the development of affordable rental housing. So in 2018, the Community Housing Trust set out to develop 28 affordable rentals. Unfortunately, in Jackson, where the hard costs of construction are pushing $700 a foot, net rental revenue only covers about 1/3 of the cost of construction. So this required us to get creative or raise $9 million in philanthropy. You can imagine this was very motivating. And so with this project, we created a 15-year master lease. And lease in this context is the one that most everyone is familiar with, an apartment lease, for example. The Community Housing Trust needed the capital in order to break ground. Employers needed to have access to housing to help them recruit new employees. And so 4 employers agreed to pay the 15-year lease fee up front, $250,000 for a 1-bedroom unit and $340,000 for a 2-bedroom unit. Again, this helped the Community Housing Trust secure the capital we needed to break ground on the project, and it allowed the employer to have long-term access to an affordable rental at a lower cost of entry compared to the free market. Like the EROP, the employer has the additional benefit of outsourcing all administration to the Housing Trust, avoiding additional capital expenditures typically associated with residential development. Okay, so in addition to continuing our work to buy land, partner, and build affordable housing, we have our sights set on the creation of a new housing program, one that will help address a post-pandemic need that's emerged in our community. The market forces that played out in the pandemic exacerbated and accelerated an already untenable housing crisis. In the decade leading up to the pandemic, as this graph shows, median home values increased roughly 7% per year on average year over year. In the last 3 years, the average increase has been nearly 23%. So prior to the pandemic, households that earned more than 120% of area median income could afford to buy their way into the free market. Post-pandemic, this opportunity has come to a screeching halt. So as I trust you have probably mostly discussed in your respective communities, a healthy housing market has a spectrum of housing: affordable housing, employee housing, workforce housing, free market, where there are a variety of unit types and price points exist so that people and families can move through different product types as life circumstances change. But when you chart the sale prices of affordable and workforce homes in Jackson, affordable housing that serves a 2-person household, for example, someone needs to earn up to $120,000. A workforce housing product type requires an income of $195,000 annually. So this has left us really overnight with a significant portion of our population that does not have access to stable, affordable housing, the folks that are earning between $120,000 and $195,000 annually. This is where we hope to close the gap by creating a new housing program that's dedicated to households in the middle. Not only will our new GAP housing program address a need that's largely gone unaddressed, but relative to the cost required to subsidize truly affordable housing, this product type will require less subsidy, which makes this a really cost-effective approach in an inflated housing market. What's also exciting, as I think this chart illustrates, is that we have an opportunity to structure a program on the front end that incentivizes existing affordable homeowners to move up from their affordable home into GAP housing, which then helps open up entry-level affordable housing for the lowest income earners in our community. And this, of course, also happens to be the single most expensive product to develop. So this is just an overview and a snapshot of the work of the Community Housing Trust. Thank you again so much for having us here. And now I think we're all probably most happy to answer your questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ann. That was wonderful. I appreciate you guys being here as well and seeing all the wonderful work going on in Wyoming. Wyoming's still on my bucket list to make it out too. It's great. I'm going to visit next, maybe. So we do have some questions with our last few minutes here, and I want to thank everybody for participating. We had about 900 people, I think, at the max, and we have a few questions that we'll go through here at the time that we have left. So if our panelists want to come back on, that would be wonderful, and we'll go through these questions. Or as I asked them, if you're the one answering, you can come on and answer. If others want to add on to what folks are saying, please feel free to do so. So first question is for Doreen. What is the community reaction to higher densities and taller buildings to provide more housing?
Just talk a little bit about densities and height. This has been an issue that we've addressed in King City, and in particular, since we're a rural, small community, and attempting to provide a wide variety of housing types, we are looking at going up higher to 3 or 4 stories. Some of the issues with that has to do with fire equipment. That's a major issue, is do we have the appropriate fire equipment to handle a fire in a 4-story building? And so we are addressing that, looking at grant funding and getting equipment. But the other thing that we're looking at is only designating higher buildings and higher densities in particular areas of the community. As I mentioned, rather than look at providing 3 or 4-story buildings by a particular zone, we're looking at our opportunity areas. As far as number of dwelling units, higher dwelling units, in those opportunity areas, we are looking at floor area ratios as opposed to densities. So what's the difference there? In a floor area ratio, you're basically looking at the design, how much of a structure will occupy a site. So if you take, for example, 1 acre, you have a 1,000 square foot unit, that would be 1 unit per 1,000 square or per acre, 1 unit per acre. If you take that 1,000 square foot unit, divide it into 2 units, you then have 2 units per acre at 500 square feet each. So what we're looking at is saying If you have a higher density, that does not necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It means that you have a different type of housing stock. So you might have studio units, which would then require higher densities. But again, we're looking at what's the opposition to density, and typically it's what do the structures look like, and how do you articulate, and what type of quality is being provided of that structure. So we are looking at both of those, and we believe that we've addressed it. We've come to a consensus with the community that going higher in certain areas in the community is appropriate, and looking at floor area ratios as opposed to density would be appropriate.
Oh, awesome. That's great. Thank you, Doreen. Okay, so for Emily, when you were the mayor of Moab, what were the gateway housing issues you had, and how did you deal with them?
Well, I'm really happy to dovetail with Doreen. Like, density is complicated, especially in being in a rural community like Moab. So, like I said before in my presentation, if Moab's the size of Manhattan and we have enough space within our valley, then we should be able to at least, double or triple our housing stock without, worries. But so let's say in a perfect world, everyone agrees, yeah, let's have apartments and ADUs, and let's all feel very comfortable about it. Well, there's a second piece for us in Moab. We are also in the desert, and so we are very worried about water quantity and water quality. And so there's this, it's just like, just when you think you solve one problem, then people are saying, hey, we need to pump the brakes on development because of water scarcity. And I honestly think it goes on and on and on. So as mayor, it kind of felt like whack-a-mole, dealing with the housing issues as they would pop up. All of a sudden, we'd get together, we'd have focus groups, we'd have public hearings, we would solve for one thing, and then another issue would pop up. And I think that the solution to that is partnerships and perseverance. So partnership with USDA Rural Development, so helpful, and perseverance to recognize that we're talking about housing for people that, honestly cannot afford it or don't have access to it. And so all of these solutions today have been really inspiring on how we can, whack the moles.
Absolutely. Great answer. I love it. Persistency and perseverance. All right. This next one is for Anne. So for our nonprofits, Anne, what would help you do your job more efficiently and to better support your communities?
Ooh, well, on the one hand, I guess I would say that I recognize real estate acquisition is inherently optimistic, opportunistic, no matter where you are. But one of the things that I think in hindsight has made our work especially uneven over the years is really the absence of predictable recurring revenue that will allow us to advance our capital projects. If we had predictable recurring revenue, then we could develop a strategic pipeline of projects that ensures we're consistently chipping away at our housing problem without having gaps in construction. So actually, if I were starting a new housing organization today, my first big investment would be in an affordable rental development that would generate mission-driven recurring revenue to fund the operations of the organization and spin off capital to support future project development. So if that's helpful to anybody in the wings thinking about starting a new project, new organization.
Absolutely. Thank you for those comments, Anne. That's wonderful advice. This next question actually is for me, and it's, could you please explain the rehab products USD offers so that fixer-upper housing stock for lower income households can be rehabbed, including rehab for senior housing? And so in my presentation, I talked about the funding sources that we have to do repair, rehabilitation of housing stock in rural communities. And that is our 502 subsidized home loan program. Even though it's typically used for purchase, if applicants are above that very low income level, which is the maximum for the 504 repair program, they can use the 502 subsidized program to repair homes. But most people go straight to our 504 program, which is a very low income program program. For the grant, you have to be 62 or older, and it's a $10,000 maximum grant. And the loan, it could be of any age. You just have to credit qualify, which we don't have very strict credit requirements when it comes to this program. We try to be very lenient, and there's definitely some waivers available in that area, but that's a $40,000 loan with just 1% interest for 20 years. And then last but not least, our housing preservation grant program is a grant of a similar nature to the 504 program, but the grants go directly to the organization, and then the organization can charge up to 20% admin costs. And here again, they could go to that low income level. No real cap on the amount of grant there, other than if you're doing replacement housing, it can't go over 15,000. And then, of course, Congress did give us all this disaster money this year. So we're definitely excited to be able to get those repair dollars into the communities, 16 million for those that are low income of 18 or older in rural communities. So thank you for asking that question. We're coming down to the end of time, but I think we have enough for one more question and then some final thoughts from our panelists. So for our federal partners, or any of our panelists, many forests have been impacted by recent fires, posing even more challenges for affordable housing. Is there any funding set aside specifically for disaster or fire affected areas? And so I just talked about the disaster money that we have. I don't know, did you receive any funds in the disaster area? I can't recall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when there's a federally declared disaster, everybody kind of pauses and waits, because the next thing that might happen would be a congressional appropriation of funds. And when that happens, it often uses the CDBG program as a chassis. It's technically a different program. It's called CDBG DR for disaster recovery. And those funds would go out. And over the years, we've funded quite a few different disasters in this way. Including forest fires in California and Colorado come to mind. Some volcanic activity in Hawaii as well was federally declared, since we're talking about fire. But yeah, typically flooding, hurricanes. COVID was a federally declared disaster as well, and there was an additional $5 billion that came through us for response to that. And even if there's not a declared disaster, as I mentioned, our funding can be used for urgent needs from the annual program as well, giving our grantees some additional flexibilities there. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robert. Since we're in our final thoughts here, is there any final thoughts you'd like to leave the group with? We appreciate your time, Robert.
Oh, no, sorry.
No
Thank you.
final thoughts.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great.
I'm equally impressed with the turnout today, and I enjoyed everyone's presentations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robert. All right. And any final comments from you? Thank you so much for your presentation today and all your comments.
No, we're just
Kind of cut out there. So we're just, you're having internet issues out there, so.
I guess so. We're gonna have to work on that.
We hear you.
Thanks so much for having us, and we look forward to seeing what comes of this exciting webinar.
Great. Thank you so much, Anne, and your PowerPoint presenter, Julie. I appreciate you too. Emily, any final comments from you?
No, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. We appreciate your time too. And Doreen, final comments?
No, I don't. And this was excellent. And thank you, everybody, for including King City as part of this community.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate everyone's time. And I want to shout out Scott and Terry and Carolyn and Ann and Maggie and all of the people that helped us put this together on the technology side. We appreciate all of your time, and we look forward to working with you to support your gateway communities, your recreational communities, and we'll let you go 6 minutes early. Always nice to get some time back. Once again, this PowerPoint or this presentation has been recorded and will be made available to all of the registrants as well as the PowerPoint. So thanks again, everyone. Have a good one.